Hello, this is a demo of the Callroute service, but before we launch into it, let me quickly explain what Callroute is all about. We're a global cloud service focused on interconnecting enterprise telephony. Our aim is to massively simplify the adoption of UCaaS platforms such as Microsoft Teams, especially where the environment is complex. We enable you to mesh together your PSTN carriers, Microsoft Teams, traditional telephony like PBXs, analog or DEC devices, SIP phones, all the way through to contact centres, and all from the cloud. So all that being said, let me show you how we do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the Callroute portal at callroute.io. If you don't already have an account, Callroute offers a 30-day free trial, but I've already got an account, so I'm going to sign in. Okay, so I am now signed into the Callroute portal. The main areas we're going to have a look at today is how you add services. So Callroute supports services like Teams, WebEx calling, the ability to connect down to your PBX or ATAs or have SIP phones signed in. And the other part we'll have a look at is how you integrate your PSTN carriers. But let's start with the services. So I'm going to click on Add Service. You can see here I've already added some services previously, but what I'm going to show you today is how you add Microsoft Teams. So click Connect to Service. You can see here the library of services that we support. Click Connect Teams. Just a heads up that there are a few prerequisites involved here. Details are in our knowledge base, but it essentially involves you creating a new user for purposes of the connection to Callroute. The process you're now seeing involves signing into your Microsoft account using the user credentials you previously created and granting Callroute various permissions. In return, Microsoft grants us access tokens to your tenant that allows us various read-write privileges. This whole process takes approximately 1 to 2 minutes. When complete, Callroute will synchronize the users from your tenant and they are then ready to be configured. So you can see that the synchronization has been successful. There's 6 users that have been pulled through. The initial sync actually only pulls through the users that have a Microsoft Teams phone system license. You can see that 5 of these here are purple. That means that they don't have an existing voice routing policy, but they do have a phone system license, so they're ready to be activated for Callroute. This pink one here, this is actually associated with another voice service. Specifically, I know this user has a Microsoft Teams calling plan. Okay, so let's leave the Microsoft Teams users here for one moment and let's look at connecting our carrier. So I click on carriers. You can see a couple of options here being connect an SBC or connect a carrier. The reason why you would want to connect to an SBC is, for example, if you have an office in places like India where it's highly regulated and you need to actually bring the PSTN via some sort of local gateway. So you can do that by filling this in here. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at connecting your carrier. Callroute has a library of carriers which are already pre-templated. If your carrier is not on the list, Callroute will template it for you. You just need to get in touch. So let's look at CallWave, for example. This is a user registration integration. So I already know the password for this one. So I'm going to hit Add Carrier and CallWave is now configured. Okay, so the final piece of the jigsaw is the phone numbers associated with CallWave. So I need to tell Callroute what these are. So I would click Add Range. I would type in the first number in the range. Say there's 9 numbers in the range. I want to associate these with CallWave. And you may actually want to also associate a tag. So if you have a lot of phone numbers, you can tag some of them so it makes it easier in the future to search for them. Now we need to actually associate the phone numbers with a default inbound route. So when the traffic hits Callroute, where by default do we send the traffic? And so we're going to send it to Microsoft Teams. Okay, so the number range is created. So I'm now going to go in and view those numbers. So you can see here, these are all of the numbers I've just created. But at the moment, they're not actually associated with any Microsoft Teams user per se. So what I want to do now is actually associate this number here, 456, with a Microsoft Teams user. Find a user, let's just say it's Oddjob, and select a user persona. I will show you this in a moment. It's the ability to assign a policy mix, which will define exactly what the user can and cannot do within Microsoft Teams, but I'm just going to click default for the moment. And we also support a secondary failover path. So for example, if Microsoft Teams had an outage, you could then forward the call or direct the call to, let's say, a SIP phone that is signed into the service. Okay, press assign. So what this is now doing is we are writing down to the Microsoft tenant and configuring the user's CLI or number ending 456. So that will be the number that he sees on his dial pad. And you can see here as well on the inbound path, the secondary failover, should Microsoft Teams not be available, is the factory 4 phone. Okay, so let's go to the Microsoft Teams service. So let's have a look at the user personas, which I mentioned earlier. So this is the user personas. You can see that there is a default user persona which was created when you first synchronized your tenant with Callroute. So what a user persona actually is, if I click on configure, you can see here there is a variety of fields. So Callroute actually synchronizes with the Microsoft Teams tenant and it will suck in all the policies so that you can build your own custom personas. So for example, here, if I was to click on create user persona, it's going to give it a name. So now I can actually select from the various options. So on the calling policy option, I can say, okay, prevent toll bypass. I can set a meeting policy. So I can create any custom mix that I wish. And also, if I wish to give the user a phone number from a particular range, I could then suggest, okay, well, when the persona is applied, suggest a number from London. Click that, click create, and that persona is now created. So now going to the users section. So if I actually wanted now to go and activate a user to give the user a new CLI and a persona, I could come in here, press configure, select the persona, and as you can see, it's already pre-populated with London because obviously I set a number range that is a preferred one to assign. Another nice feature of Callroute is the ability for us to aid the enterprise to migrate users from a legacy environment such as a PBX to Microsoft Teams. There's some numbers here in a place called Chichester associated with carrier CallWave, and all of the calls are being routed to a PBX. So that's via a SIP trunk created from the Callroute cloud down to the on-premise PBX. So if I just wanted to start migrating some of these phone numbers to Microsoft Teams, I could say, okay, what I'd like to do, Microsoft Teams, and I'd like to associate the phone number with Oddjob. And I'm going to click assign. And now that user is being associated with that phone number. So it's very, very simple to migrate users from legacy environments to Microsoft Teams. Okay, so I think that's it for this demonstration. It's a very kind of brief whistle-stop tour of the service. It really is a very flexible and powerful cloud service that allows you to integrate all of your telephony, be it legacy and PBXs or Microsoft Teams, or things like ATAs, WebEx calling. We can bring it all together and allow it to be connected to the carrier of your choice in a very simple, intuitive portal. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy using Callroute.